What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS, bringing you a brand new video. In today's video, I'm going over the Thursday night showdown, Week 11 matchup, New England Patriots at the Atlanta Falcons. This one does not look pretty at all for the Falcons. Now, the other day, it didn't look pretty for the 49ers, and they ended up blowing out the Rams. So, anything can happen at this point. Lately, the underdogs have been killing the favorites, so we'll see what this looks like. New England comes in at 6.5-point favorites right now. Over under is 47, so you're looking at about 27 points for New England, about 20 points for Atlanta. So still points on the board from what Vegas says, but I'll get into it, and we got some very interesting pricing. More in DraftKings than Fanduel. So Fanduel, you get Matt Ryan, Mac Jones, Cordell Patterson, Damien Harris. On DraftKings, you get the first three on both sides are the same. And then you get Kyle Pitts, Damien Harris. On Fanduel, you get Damien Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, and then Kyle Pitts. So you get a bit of a discount on Fanduel for Kyle Pitts than you do DraftKings. He comes in at the fourth highest salary on DraftKings. Fanduel, you get him at the sixth. So some difference there. But other than that, you get Harris, Stevenson right behind each other on DraftKings as well. And then for some reason, DraftKings has Wayne Gallman at $8,400 and Mike Davis all the way down here at 5.8. Why? I don't know. If Mike Davis was out, that would make more sense. But we have not seen Gallman do anything. Like, anything. He had 15 rushing attempts for only 55 yards against Dallas. And this is in garbage time, too, at that, so you should figure that his yardage would be up there more. And a 21-yard reception. But Mike Davis is there. He's healthy. He's going to be playing. The only news you have to watch is Cordell Patterson. If Cordell Patterson plays, Wayne Gallman is probably out as far as a play tonight. But if Patterson is out, then of course Wayne Gallman gets in there. But on DraftKings, he's too expensive. I don't care what he does tonight. He would have to go offer 15 plus fantasy points in order just to cover that, and that's asking for a lot for a running back who's going to be sharing the snaps. So on FanDuel, the difference that you get is Wayne Gallman is 6,500, so it's a lot more playable if Cordell Patterson is out. So that's the first injury news. The other injury news to watch out for tonight is Jonnu Smith is questionable, and N'Keal Harry is questionable. Now, N'Keal Harry doesn't matter as much, but Jonnu Smith definitely matters. If Jonnu's in, Hunter Henry's value goes down just a little bit for me, not a lot. I still believe Hunter Henry, he's got one of the more favorable matchups here against Atlanta, and you look at some of the numbers he's been able to put up this season, especially against some of the worst linebacker cores in the league. He's been able to put up some decent numbers, but his price point is up there, so it's something else you have to watch out for. Bolden being questionable, I believe Bolden's going to play, but regardless, you still get Damien Harris and Stevenson in, so Bolden being out or in really shouldn't factor that much. And then Haydenhurst is actually out tonight. Now, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but you look at his targets outside of last week when I believe he was injured, if I'm not mistaken. He still was active, but I don't know if he was ruled out. But he is officially out this week. And you look at his targets, they're not a lot, but he's got 4, 5, 4, 3, 3. So that's 3 targets that have to go to somewhere. And it does also mean Kyle Pitts is probably never going to leave the field tonight. Now, he probably will have a couple plays off. But, I mean, you look at his numbers lately, and it's ridiculous. So Kyle Pitts is probably the more favorable person that you want to get on both sites, especially FanDuel. You can afford them a lot easier on FanDuel. Now, the interesting thing is PFF ranks New England as the best passing advantage matchup on the week, and they are ranked 5th in the best running option this week. So basically, it's saying that New England should be able to move the ball pretty efficiently on the ground and especially in the air. Atlanta looks like they have somewhat of an advantage. It's not huge at all, but they do have a little bit, and their pass is not. They don't. And the reason being is they don't have Calvin Ridley anymore. They have Kyle Pitts. You look at their wide receivers, Russell Gage, Zach Kunesh. I can't ever say his name, so I apologize for that. And then Tajay Sharp. So those are your 3 wide receivers going against a very strong New England defensive backcourt, not only with their corners but their safeties as well. So Kyle Pitts is probably the more safer option, and I hate saying safe because it always backfires no matter who it is. But Kyle Pitts is probably your guy that you're going to want to get to, especially on Showdown slates. We calculated the number, and out of 30 primetime games this season, 24 tight ends have scored a touchdown, and there's been 13 games, I believe was the number 13 or 12, where there have been multiple tight end touchdowns. So primetime Showdown slates is where tight ends apparently just ball out. So Kyle Pitts, Hunter Henry, Juwanna Smith, names to watch for tonight. So let's get into it. Mac Jones and Matt Ryan, 200 off on DraftKings, on Fanduel 500, so it's basically the same thing essentially. Now, I do favor Mac Jones here, although fantasy-wise, you look at some of his numbers, and he's only hit 20-plus fantasy points once this season. It doesn't get a lot of pass attempts as much as some of the other quarterbacks do, but he still has his completion percentage, which is ridiculous. Through 82 last week against Cleveland, but he's consistently hit some 70s and above. He's had a couple off weeks, but other than that, he's been in the 70% range, so he's very efficient with his throws. Matt Ryan, on the other hand, you look at him, and Matt Ryan is a yards guy. It has been different this season, especially with Calvin Ridley being out. But you look at Matt Ryan, and he's pretty much a boomer bust player this season. He's either gotten you 20-plus fantasy points, or he's gotten you 10 or less. Last week, that rough game against Dallas only gets you 3 fantasy points. But he throws the ball a lot. You look at his passing attempts. Besides the last 3 weeks, he's hit 35 and above. So it's going to be interesting to see of what Matt Ryan, that offense, are going to try to do to move the ball on New England. So Mac Jones is my favorite quarterback here. I'd rather take Mac Jones than Matt Ryan here. Cordell Patterson is in. That changes a lot for my outlook on Atlanta. If Cordell Patterson is in, I'm going to want to get some Cordell Patterson, Kyle Pitts. Like I said, the price, you get a discount on Pitts, but on both sides, these 3 players are pretty much in the same tier of pricing. Damien Harris at 8,800. I mean, he's one of the guys that's been pretty consistent for the most part this season. Is going to get you 10-plus fantasy points, but you can't expect him to have a 106-yard, 2-touchdown game, although it is doable against this terrible Atlanta team. I would not expect that all the time, especially with how good Stevenson's playing. Stevenson would be that guy. If he gets a decent amount of reps, he's probably going to get you some fantasy points. So the pricing's there. I like both. I'm going to obviously favorite Harris, especially him being healthy, and can be involved in the pass game. It's pretty close in pricing on both sides, so you don't get a full discount. Wayne Gallman on DraftKings, though, I'm probably going to stay away from Wayne Gallman. Cordell's in on both sides. Wayne Gallman goes to none. But on DraftKings, I'm going to stay away from him just because of the price. Jacoby Myers actually has the best matchup for wide receivers this week. Or in this game, I apologize. In this game, and as you can see, he's right there at 10-5, so a pretty good price on Fanduel on DraftKings. He's at 8,000, so you get a lot of plays here around that 7 to 8K range, which is you're going to have to really determine of what you want to get to if you're playing a small amount of entries. If you're playing a large, of course, that's no problem at all. But if you're playing a small, you got to focus on the Kyle Pitts, the running backs for New England, and then your receivers for New England as well, because you get Jacoby Myers at 8,000. You get a discount at Bourne at 76, and then Hunter Henry at 7. And you're probably going to lean towards Jacoby Myers being that reliable guy. He finally got his touchdown last week. On FanDuel, it's different. Hunter Henry's more than Jacoby Myers, so I'm leaning a lot more on FanDuel for Jacoby Myers than Hunter Henry. And then you get Russell Gage, more expensive than Kevin Bourne. But Kevin Bourne, you do get a nice discount on FanDuel rather than DraftKings. So Russell Gage being 6'6" there, it's hard to say because Russell Gage, you would figure with Calvin Ridley being out, he'd be the number one receiver. We've seen him play a full game with 0 targets last week. Didn't bring in any of the 3 targets he had against Dallas, but then you look at a game against New Orleans, targeted 8 times, Miami 6 times, Tampa Bay 7. And those are pretty bad pass defenses. You get Carolina and Dallas with a little bit of better. Dallas is shaky. And then you get a rough defense here. New England's defense has played pretty well. They just shut down Cleveland. So it's going to be interesting of how Atlanta moves the ball. But Russell Gage, I'm probably staying away from it. It honestly is Kyle Pitts, Cordell Patterson. If they're in, there's not a lot else that I like. Atlanta has a lot of rough matchups, like I said earlier. But New England's defense at 5'6" on DraftKings. FanDuel doesn't play defenses. But New England's defense at 5'6". Defenses are weird for me. I do think this is a defense that you could actually play tonight. I wouldn't have a lot of it, but you've seen what they've done the last 4 weeks. 10 plus fantasy points for defenses, even when they allow 24 points against the Chargers. They got 2 interceptions, they get sacks, and they get that defense, which defensive touchdown, which helps them get over 10 plus fantasy points. But throughout the season, I mean, they still, 2 was the minimum they've gotten all season, facing a very easily turnoverable offense here. 56, the Patriots defense isn't terrible in my opinion tonight. Nelson Aguilar is probably going to have the worst matchup for New England receivers. He's going to see more A.J. Terrell than anybody else. And A.J. Terrell has been playing pretty good for Atlanta. He can't do it all, but he's trying to do his part there. Nick Folk is questionable. I believe he is going to play, if not Patterson right there. Excuse me. Patterson right there at 4,400, and Young Hoku at 4,000. So both kickers are in play for me. I'm probably going New England kicker over Atlanta, just because of how efficiently New England is going to move the ball tonight. I'm probably going to go with Nick Folk if he's out. Like I said, Patterson's right there, so another good option. Joanna Smith is actually a discount if he plays tonight, 2,400. It's not a bad play at all. I mean, he hasn't had like the exciting games, but this is a showdown slate. This is a primetime game. Teams get very creative on primetime. So somebody like Joanna Smith, who's been banged up recently, you might see him get in and get a lot more looks, especially if New England is supposed to score 27 points. If they take a huge lead, you might see a little more Joanna Smith there. Haydenhurst being out, I mentioned, makes you like Kyle Pitts more, but it actually opens up somebody like Lee Smith, who is supposed to get those reps, and you look at what he's done this season. It's not anything exciting, but he has been pretty efficient with the targets that he's gotten. So it's not anything to where you expect him to get a lot of fantasy points or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But paying $200 for a tight end that's going to see a decent amount of snaps here, especially if Atlanta does what they normally do and put Kyle Pitts out in the slot or anything like that. Lee Smith might get a couple reps. So other than that, there's not a lot of cheap value. N'Keal Harry at 600. I mean, I'm not too high on N'Keal Harry at all, but as a value of $900 for him to get in there and maybe get a 20-yard reception, something like that, it's still not paying off at all. And you're depending on him to play. You're depending on New England to score a lot and him to get reps. If somebody from New England, say Jacoby Myers or say Kevin Bourne, go down, then you get N'Keal Harry's going to play. So that's something that you also have to take into consideration. Now, you shouldn't ever play around an injury, but it is something to also put out there that an injury can happen. Injuries happen all the time, and he can easily get in the game if something were to happen to a receiver. So that's it for DraftKings. Fanduel, let's go and cover it really quick. You get the kickers at Nick Folk, obviously being the more expensive kicker. Young Hoku at 8,500. You get Mike Davis at 7,500 on Fanduel. Very good discount for him, in my opinion. If Cordell Patterson is out, 7,500. Mike Davis, he hasn't put up a lot of fantasy points, especially as of late. But with how good New England's defense is, Mike Davis probably have to be heavily included in the pass game as well as the running game. You said you get the discounted Atlanta receivers, but guess what? They're tough matchup. It's not anything pretty that you want to go after. Nelson Aguilar, 7,500. Bad play in my opinion. Wayne Gallman, like I said, 6,500 on a FanDuel. If Cordell Patterson's out, Wayne Gallman's definitely a lot more in play. Although I'd probably lean towards Mike Davis on both sides being 7,500. And then in the 5K range on DraftKings, you get Lee Smith there at 5,500. But other than that, there's still nothing on FanDuel as far as that cheap, reliable value. So that is it for today's video, guys. If you guys did enjoy the video, leave a like. If you guys want to join us, I will link our Discord in the description down below so you guys can join that. And I hope this video helped, and we will see you in the next.